Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be creating the super realistic 3D Earth inside of Davinci Resolve using the Fusion page. With this you can pan around it, change the lighting, and have the effects on the Earth change based on where the spotlight is. This tutorial is jam-packed full of awesome tips that will expand your Fusion knowledge. Before we begin, my name is Jake Whip, and I create awesome Davinci Resolve tutorials just like this one. If that's something that you guys are interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on a brand new video. If you find yourself enjoying this tutorial at any point, feel free to give it a like and drop a comment down below. If you guys want the project files for this tutorial as well as project files for most of my other tutorials, you can do so by clicking the join button to the left of the subscribe button. This is just a great way of showing your support for the channel. The textures that I'm going to be using in this video are from Video Copilot, so there's a link down below to where you can get those for free. With all that being said, let's jump into the video. Alright, so we're inside of a brand new project here, and I just have all my textures imported, okay? So what we need to do first is create a Fusion composition. So I'm gonna come to my effects library and grab a Fusion composition. Alright, we'll just leave it at the default 5 seconds. You can always change this later on. But we'll just head over into the Fusion page, and now that we're inside of the Fusion page, we can begin setting up our scene. So the first thing that I want to do is import all of the textures and then label them so that we can just visually see which texture is which. So let me just select all of these here. We'll drag the blue haze in, rename this blue haze. I will drag the clouds in, name this clouds, and I'll just do this for the rest of them just by hitting F2 on my keyboard to rename them. Alright, I now have all of these in, so I'm just going to drag these off to the side here. And now we can begin setting up the 3D scene. So what I want is first up the shape node. So if I drag the shape node down and then view it off to the side by hitting 1 on my keyboard, we can now see this plane that has appeared in our 3D viewport. What I'm going to do is close out of this media pool so that we have a little bit more room to work. And the first thing that we're going to do is set the shape to be a sphere, unless of course you want to make it a flat Earth, then you just leave it at plane. And then what we'll do is bring the radius all the way up to 10, I just like it when it's a little bit bigger like that. And then what we'll do is link the height subdivisions to an expression and link this to the base subdivisions. So for right now we can just leave it at 20, but later on we will want to crank that up, otherwise you'll be able to see the subdivisions on the Earth, and that doesn't really look that good. So that just makes it easier for down the road. Next up, let's work on texturing the shape. So for this one, let's grab the diffuse texture, okay? And then add in the ward node, okay? And if we plug this into the shape node here, as you can see, the Earth texture is now on our globe. Alright, so next let's grab our bump map, okay? So or the normal map, and then I will add in the bump map node after that. And then I can connect that up into the ward node just like so. If you guys want that little pop-up menu that just appeared, instead of just clicking and dragging your pipe into another node, right click on it and then let it go on top of another node and that'll pop up so you can just see all of the different inputs. It's a really nice feature. Okay, so we're gonna leave it at this for now and then come back and tweak some stuff later on when I can explain it just a little bit better. So the shape node, I'm just gonna rename this the Earth sphere, okay? There we go, hit enter. And then after this, add in a merge 3D node and then a render 3D node. Alright, and if I view the render 3D node, you can see just a perspective from inside of the globe, okay? It's just the default camera position. So what I'm going to do is just kind of spread this out a little bit, as there's going to be a lot of different nodes around it, and it's really going to be important to stay kind of organized in this process. Next up then, I'll grab my camera, and I will plug this into the merge node. So I'm going to view my merge node off to the side here, okay? The one that the camera is going into. Then find the perspective that I want my camera to be facing. Right click, do camera, copy POV to camera 3D 1. And as you can see, the camera is going to copy the perspective of our just perspective viewer over here. That's just a feature that has really helped me out a lot. Alright, so I'm just gonna drag this over a little bit here. Next up, doing shift space, let's add in a directional light. Alright, and connect this up into the merge 3D 1. And now if I come into the render node and enable lighting, as you can see, you can kind of see it off to the side over here. What I want to do is in the directional light, just drag it out a little bit. Okay, and then inside the transform, I'm going to copy the Z position that I moved it to. Let's just say I do it at 30. Alright, come down to the pivot, and then put on the X negative 30. Okay, so just negative whatever the top value is. So that sets the pivot point to be in the center. So now when I adjust the rotation, it'll rotate around the center of the globe. So I'll just bring the X up a little bit here, and then bring the Y around until it's about right there so that we can see it in the view. So that's already looking pretty ugly. We just have this big white reflection in the middle of it. So let's go ahead and fix that. So first up, what we wanted to do is make it so that when it's over the land here, it doesn't show up, because that's not going to be quite as reflective as the water. So that's what the gloss map is for. So if I drag this and put it into the color material, as you can see, that's already going to fix it a bunch. Now we got to tweak some of the settings inside of the word node to make it so it's perfect. So first, let's come down to the specular, and then we can link the spread v to the u just by doing an expression like that. Right? Now when we drag this up, it'll just kind of diffuse it a little bit. You can bring the intensity down a little and set the spread u and v to be about 0.5. Maybe bring the intensity back up. Now just play around with the directional light here. And I think that's looking pretty good. Alright, we can always tweak that later on once we get all the clouds, lights, and the haze and all that stuff added in. Alright, so over in our viewer here, I can right click, do 3D options, and then check lighting. So now I can also see the lighting over here. And with that, we're going to work on the city lights, okay? So on the opposite side of the globe, where there is no spotlight on it, we want the lights to show up. And now this one gets a little bit more complicated to set up. So what we need to do is copy the Earth sphere here, alright, and paste this. And what we'll do is rename this to without textures. And if we view this off to the side, we don't have any textures on it. That's exactly what we want. What we'll do is put this into another merge 3D node and also put in a spherical camera. Okay, so we'll just connect all of that up just like so, and then set this out into a render 3D node. And we can view the render 3D node off to the side, and it's going to be completely white. What we need to do is set the directional light to go into that merge node as well. So let me just drag the output of this into the merge node and enable lighting on the render 3D node. So now we can see what parts of the sphere are lit and what parts are not. So now's where stuff starts to get a little more complicated again. So this render 3D node, what we need is we need this to be the same size as our lights texture. So if I come down here and grab my illumination map, that's going to be the lights texture. And if I view this off to the side, as you can see, this is 6,000 by 3,000 pixels. So we need this render 3D node to put out the same resolution. And because of how the spherical camera works, if we come over to the image tab, this isn't going to be exactly the same. The width is always going to be half of what it shows up off to the side here, okay? So we need the width to be set to 3,000, but we also want to make it so it automatically gets the right height based on its aspect ratio. So it's really simple to do this. So first, uncheck auto resolution, right click on the height, alright, do expression, and then type width, and then divide it by our composition size. So that would be 1920 by 1080, so times 1080. And when I hit enter, it should stay exactly the same. And now what I want to do is just drag this width up here, okay? And what I want to do is set this to be 3000. And when I hit enter, now our composition is going to be 6,000 by 3,000, which is exactly the same as the luminance map. So that's all working perfectly. And now because the image is being taken from the inside of the sphere, the textures are going to be flipped from what we want them to be. So after the render 3D node, add in a transform, we'll view it off to the side and flip it on the horizontal. Alright, and there we go, it's been flipped. So now let's copy our Earth sphere again and paste it. Alright, and we'll rename this lights, or city lights. And I'm going to move my camera down to the bottom here, just like that. And I'll have the city lights going into the merge node. Alright, so now we can see that. And what we want to do is get the orientation right. So what I'll do just to start off is put the transform node into the city lights as the texture. And after the transform node, I'll add in a lumikey. Alright, so now we can kind of see through it a little bit. We can bring the high value down, just like that. So now this is kind of what we have. What we want is a texture coming from our spherical camera to be wherever there is light. So in the spherical camera, what I have to do is set the transform on the Y to be 90 degrees. So when I rotate that, now as you can see, wherever the light is, it's going to be white because of how we've set this up. So now that we got that fixed, we can disconnect the transform from the lumikey and plug the illumination map into that lumikey. Now we can view the lumikey off to the side here and just play around with the settings here just to make it so that the lights are a little bit brighter, but also don't have a black background. You can bring up the gamma a little bit here. I don't want to go too high because otherwise it starts bringing some of the black back in. We'll call that good for now. Alright, so as you can see, we can only see it on the side with lighting. Alright, we want to be able to see it on the back side too. That's because the city light sphere is being affected by light. So if you come into the city sphere, or city lights sphere, and then come to lighting and do uncheck the affected by lights, we can now see it on both of the sides, or all the sides. Alright, that's exactly what we want. Let's also come over here and come to the material, come to specular, and bring the intensity all the way down to 0, okay? And now that we got that done, what we need to do is take our transform one here and put this into the illumination node as a mask. Then apply it inverted, and now it's completely gone. And that's because the channel that we're using is set to alpha. And if we view the transform here, there is no alpha values here. It's all either black or white. So what that means is we need to set this from alpha. Let me just view this off to the side here. Alpha, and we need to set it to luminance, okay? So that's going to be white and black values. So if I do luminance now, as you can see on the back side, we can see the lights, but on the front we cannot. It kind of has this fade off here. And we can control the fade off by adding a bitmap after the transform node here. Alright, making sure it's connected into the yellow input, and then that goes in as a mask. Alright, and this also needs to be set to luminance. And now with this, I can adjust the high and low sliders, and I can kind of adjust the fall off here. So I'll just shrink it a little bit till it's something right about there. Alright, so it's just right at the edge. Alright, I think that's looking great. So after this luma keyer, I'm just going to add in a color corrector node. And inside of here, I'll just come down and bring the gain up a little bit. Let me look on the back here. And with this, we can just make all the lights just a little bit brighter. Let's do something around 2. Alright, we can always change that later on. But I just think that helps them pop a little bit more. Alright, so we have all of this done. We can just drag it up. Something that we can do for organization is select all the nodes in a certain group. Okay, do shift space and type underlay. Right, now we just have this like nice little group here. And to rename it, just hold down Alt and click on it. Then hit F2 and we can name this Earth. Okay, let's come up here and do this one as well. So shift space underlay, and then Alt click it and call this one lights. Alright, so now we can just kind of visually see what is what here. Alright, that's just a little helpful for organization. Next up, let's add in the clouds. So if I come down here and get my clouds map. Alright, I'll copy the Earth sphere again and paste it. I want to delete that, drag this out, and rename this cloud sphere, and put the clouds into there, and then connect this up into the merge node. And now, as you can see our clouds. Again, we want to come to the material and bring the specular down a bunch. Now, we don't want that completely at 0, but we want it down a lot. And again, after this, we're going to have to add in a luma keyer just to remove all of the black. There we go, that looks pretty good right off the bat. And something we need to do with both the cloud sphere and the city lights is just adjust the size a little bit. So to scale it up, the radius just a little bit. So let's do 10.003, okay? So now it's just a little bit bigger, so that'll prevent any intersecting. Let's actually set this one to be 0.006, and then have the city lights to be 0.003. So now what we're going to do is, because we're running into some errors here with the lights and the clouds, so what we need to do is just shift all this over here a little bit and add in another merge 3D node, bring it over, and then plug the camera into that merge 3D node. Alright, and also take the lights texture and put it into there. And now if we view that off to the side, we can see the lights and the clouds. It's something to do with the directional light, so we'll have the directional light going into this merge, making sure it does not pass the lights through. And then that all comes into this next merge node with the camera. So you just need another merge node pretty much. Not exactly sure why that's happening, but you need it. Okay, so next up we need to add in like a blue haze around the Earth, alright? Because this honestly does not look that good. So how we do this is after this ward node here, let's add in a reflect node, alright? And so this will just be set up with a bunch of reflections. And then we also need, let me just expand this underlay here a bit. Alright, so up in here I will add in the ward node and put this into the reflection under the color material. Alright, so now we just have this kind of white haze around the Earth. But in order to make that blue, what we can do is just come up here and adjust the color. Give it kind of a bluish look. Alright, just a light blue like that. I like that right now. And then we'll take the gloss map and put this into the color material, just like before, so specular color. And then inside the ward node, we'll come down to the specular and again, bring this down all the way. And then inside the reflection node, we can adjust all of its intensity. So we can adjust the face on strength, okay? But I'm gonna bring the glancing angle all the way up and then mainly play with the fall off here. Set to something around there. Maybe we'll bring the face on up just a little bit. And now when we pan around here, we kind of have this really nice looking blue haze around the area of the Earth that has light on it. And again, go ahead and tweak this as much as you want to get your final effect. You know, just changing the color, changing the intensity. It requires just a lot of tinkering to get it exactly how you might want it. So now let's add in all the stars around. That really helps just kind of finish this off and sell the effect. So let's add in another sphere, or another shape node, and set it to be a sphere, which if you're going for the whole flat earth thing, you still want to set this to a sphere, okay? And then we'll take the stars node and put this into here as the material, and then connect this up into the merge node. Then we'll set this to be equal to like 300, and now we have this big sphere going all around the earth. And you can't really see the stars textures, and that's because it's not lit. So let's come to the visibility, or the lighting, not affected by lights. Now you can kind of see them, but they're all really stretched out. That's because the stars texture is only 1K, alright? But the nice thing about it is it's repeatable. So how we're going to do this is we're going to grab a background node, and then inside of this background node, let's come over to the image, and we can right click on the height and do that same expression that we did before. So we'll do width, and then we'll divide that by 1920 times 1080. And now what I want this to be is I want this thing to be a very, very big texture. Alright, I gotta uncheck auto resolution. But let's just do like 8200 to start. Okay, and then I will merge this up with the stars texture, flip it around, and view this off to the side here. And now as you can see, we have a 8200 by 4613 texture. But the stars texture is only taking up a small part of that. So inside of the merge node, you can come down and set the edges to be mirror. And now that'll just spread out all across this whole area. And I'll even bring the size down a little bit so it'll be like 0.6 some. And I think that's pretty good. We just have a bunch more stars. And if we view this in the merge node, we can now pan around and just see all of the stars out in the distance. So what I like to do is, because in the angle, if I adjust the zoom, the stars will get really close to the camera. And even though I'm zoomed in a lot, I still like to have a lot of stars in the background. Even if that's not technically what would happen. So the workaround that I have for this is I'll make another merge node, merge 3D, and I'll copy the render node and paste that. Alright, and inside of this merge node, I'll have the stars coming in, and I will copy my camera and paste it as an instance, so Control-Shift-V. And so that makes it so that everything is linked. But I can come and right click on the angle of view and do D-Instance. I'll also do this for the focal length, okay? And now if I put this into the merge node, put this into the render node, and then merge the render node up with the other one, like that, flip the inputs like so, when I change the angle of view on the camera, it won't change the stars. But if I move the camera, it will change the position of the stars. Alright, so that's just something I like to do. Again, you don't need to do it. Just kind of a personal taste for me. Alright, let me just clean up my node graph here because this is getting pretty disgusting. Alright, so for a few more steps, we want to grab this blue haze texture that I have, and I'll bring it over here, and just merge this up after the fact here. And in the merge node, set this to be screen. So now we just kind of have a nice little blue haze, and depending on how bright you want it, you can just adjust the blend. So I'll bring it up to about there. Alright, then depending on where you have the camera will also affect it, so it's a little bit closer here. You'll want it to be a bit brighter. Okay, so after the first render 3D node here, I want to add in a soft glow node. Alright, I can just play around with the settings a little bit here. Just kind of have that little like halo going around the earth. And I'll also take the render 3D node and put this in as an effect mask. Okay? And in the soft glow, I'll just come and apply the mask inverted. So now we can only see the like outer glow. This will be another thing, if you want to do this, you'd have to have the stars coming out in a separate render, because otherwise this method would not work. But yeah, now we can just come in here and just adjust the settings, maybe make it a little brighter, bring the glow size down, bring it up, just play around with it until you get something that you like. I'm going to say something around there. And then after this final merge, I'm going to add in a grain texture. Alright, zoom in a little bit and bring the gain or the power down a lot. But just have a little bit of noise there, which just helps make it look a little more realistic. Then you can go ahead and animate your camera, render it out. And for rendering, what I would recommend is using a saver node. Okay, so after the media out, or the last node, just add in a saver node, select the place that you want to save it, make sure that has a bunch of storage space, and you want to make like a dedicated folder for it. Then once you've done that, you just want to go Fusion, render all savers, and then that'll take a little while. This is a pretty intensive effect. And once that's done, you'll go back to the edit page and just drag that folder right onto the timeline, and it'll import it as one full clip. Then you can export it from there using the Deliver tab. The reason that you have to go through all these steps is I just found that it's faster. Using the saver node on my computer, it was faster than exporting from the delivery tab. So you can try it on yours, but for me, saver worked a lot better. So anyways, that's the final effect. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun to make. Again, if you guys want the project file for this, you can do so by hitting the join button to the left of the subscribe button. Note that if you do that, you will need to download the textures from Video Copilot and import them yourself. That's not something that I can just leave in there just because of copyright laws. But if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on any new videos. Comment down below if you guys have any questions or any suggestions for future tutorials. With all that being said, I'll see you guys next time for another video.